Ja sam po nacionalnosti musliman.
Ja sam Hrvat.
Ja sam po nacionalnosti Srpkinja.
Mada ne volim da dijelim ljude na nacionalnosti, ja više volim dijeliti po specijalnostima kojima se bavi oni poslom.
Kompletne oružane snage u Bosni i Hercegovini, svi pripadnici se obučavaju po jednim standardima. Nose jednu odoru i imaju jednog zapovjednika.
Today, the Bosniak, Croat and Serb soldiers of Bosnia and Herzegovina serve under the same flag. Only 15 years ago, they were fighting each other. In 1995, Bosnia and Herzegovina had close to 500,000 men under arms and had 3 different armies, all local. NATO's support for reforming the military started under the peacekeeping mandate of the stabilization force SFOR.
That was the time at which some risk could be taken with the security umbrella of NATO to start reducing these armies.
SFOR worked on downsizing the various militaries and increasing transparency, as well as vetting senior military appointments.
U toj fazi je osnovni proces bio proces demilitarizacije i smanjivanja ratnih odbrambenih struktura.
In 1997, NATO established a security cooperation program with Bosnia and Herzegovina. At first, it focused on confidence building, but then gradually turned to analyzing and developing solutions for the security challenges facing the country. By 2002, the number of active duty soldiers had come down to 34,000, less than a tenth of the figure at the end of hostilities, but still far too many soldiers for a country of 4 million people and more than the country could afford.
Druga faza je bila od 2003. do 2005. godine, kada su uspostavljeni neke osnove temelji sadašnjeg odbrambenog sistema.
More radical reforms were pushed through under 2 defense reform commissions, which brought together all local and international officials and organizations working in the security field. The first commission was set up in 2003 by the International High Representative Lord Ashdown, following 2 major scandals involving the Bosnian Serb army. First came revelations about illegal arms sales to Saddam Hussein's regime on the eve of the Iraq War in violation of UN sanctions.
We basically caught them red-handed doing this. Lord Ashdown determined that this couldn't be allowed to continue. We couldn't have entity armed forces or entity governments undermining the sovereignty of the state.
Kada se uvidjelo da predsjedništvo, odnosno da civilne snage nemaju kontrolu nad oružanim snagama i nad cjelokupnim odbrambenim sektorom.
Then in March 2003, SFOR discovered that for years Bosnian Serb army intelligence had been illegally wiretapping international civilian and military personnel and the Federation's army and government, as well as private citizens.
Njihovo prisluškivanje je svakako utjecalo da međunarodna zajednica, odnosno ured visokog predstavnika, donese jednu odluku o formiranju Komisije za reformu odbrane.
The country's desire to join NATO's Partnership for Peace provided additional political impetus for defence reform. To be a credible partner, they needed to have state-level coordination of defence. The 2003 Defence Reform Commission was tasked to draft the necessary legal and constitutional changes.
And what emerged from this was a state Ministry of Defense and a state Joint Staff and Operational Command.
Each entity retained its own defence ministry responsible for administrative tasks, manning, training and equipment, but there was now a functioning state-level defence establishment.
It was a huge breakthrough at the time when you consider these armies had been fighting each other just a few years before.
In the wake of these reforms, the armed forces were reduced to 12,000 active duty soldiers and reserves of 60,000. This improved security environment allowed NATO to end its stabilization mission and hand over responsibility for security to the European Union. But NATO maintained a headquarters in Sarajevo to support defense reform and to help prepare the country to join the Partnership for Peace. More challenges lay ahead. The first reforms had changed structures, but not mindsets.
When later on in 2004, revelations occurred of support from members of the Bosnian Serb army for General Ratko Mladic, a person indicted by the International Criminal Tribunal for The Hague for genocide and other war crimes. Clearly, more change was needed.
Ongoing tensions were evident at a swearing-in ceremony in early 2005, when Bosnian Serb recruits and their families booed the Bosnian anthem and refused to pledge allegiance to Bosnia and Herzegovina. A new mandate to take the reform process further was given to the 2005 Defence Reform Commission. It was co-chaired by the Bosnian Defence Minister and the political advisor of NATO headquarters in Sarajevo.
I u toj trećoj fazi, dakle, smo gospodin Gregorijan i ja zajedno radili i u toj fazi najveći izazov je bio definisanje modela.
And we decided, as members of the Commission, we should try to create a new armed forces that are actually designed to deal with the 21st century. The world has changed dramatically since Yugoslavia fell apart, and the nature of security threats have changed completely.
The reforms that came into force in January 2006 created a single military force and a single chain of command running from the presidency. All three constituent peoples were to be equally represented at senior decision-making levels. Conscription was also abolished. The armed forces were further reduced in size to a maximum of 10,000 professional soldiers with reserves of half that number.
It is still seen as the single most effective and far-ranging and enduring reform project that the international community undertook in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
The impact of these reforms went beyond the country itself.
By being the country that took that first bold step to professionalize its armed forces and get rid of conscription, within the space of 6 months, Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, and Macedonia all announced that they were either completely getting rid of conscription or would do so in a phased way over the coming years.
These structural reforms provided Bosnia and Herzegovina with simpler, more effective, and more affordable armed forces. Reforming the military was essential for the viability of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state and for stability in the region. It also paved the way for NATO to invite the country to become a member of NATO's Partnership for Peace in 2006.